This is being recorded, so we usually don't use our microphones, but for this purpose, we need to use our microphones. So thanks, Pat.
Okay, good morning. I'm Pat Gannan, the Director of Operations. With me here today as part of our team, Bob Schultz, our grounds foreman, Ken Pitts, our Supervisor of Utility and Building Maintenance, Gary Musial, our Maintenance Coordinator. Not with us here today, Aldous Vilsons, who has fallen victim to what appears to be a late winter virus hitting our department hard. Dennis Witt is not here, our Supervisor of Security, Safety, and Custodians. He's busy supporting school activities this morning. And Jim Lill is not here because he's busy meeting with our engineer and architect consultants who are working on solving the facilities-related issues with enrollment growth. The mission of the Operations Department is to provide high-quality facilities and student transportation support to the educational and co-curricular program of the district every day. We are a large department, as you can see here, with fairly wide-ranging responsibilities. We budget conservatively, but we budget to match what we believe are requirements, and we closely monitor the execution of our budget. I'm going to start out and talk about facilities. This slide shows the physical scope of our facilities. We have 10 schools in 13 locations with 1.8 million square feet. The bottom of the slide indicates that we've added new space since 2013, again in response to our growing enrollment. And this does include the most recent addition, which was temporary classrooms installed at Ballackinwood last summer. We'll talk about buildings and grounds for a minute. I put these photos in here for a reason. In addition to the maintaining and fixing things that you would expect to see us do, which are reflected in the photo in the upper left and lower right-hand corners, we also respond to Mother Nature, which you see there us out playing in the snow. But the other thing in the upper right-hand corner is we provide direct support to educational activities. In that particular picture, we are supporting a tree planting, which is part of a curriculum at an elementary school. This slide indicates the scope of maintenance activities that we are responsible for. Our philosophy is to be proactive when it comes to maintenance. We believe preventive maintenance is essential to achieving our mission of providing the high-quality facilities. We need to be proactive. We need to anticipate problems. We need to plan ahead. In addition to that, we also do some additional things. We perform functions that directly support the educational requirements. An example of this would be modifications to facilities. These would be relatively small modifications, but they're important things that we do to modify space to meet changing requirements, whether they be related to enrollment growth or special education, et cetera. We also provide extensive support to our co-curricular activities, in particular our athletic playing fields at the secondary level. We also support the capital program. That's what Jim Lill is primarily in charge of, keeping track and cracking the whip on our designers and our construction people, troubleshooting problems, and then making sure that when projects are finished, we can occupy in a smooth manner. This indicates our maintenance staffing. There has been no change from last year. Next, we'll take a look at custodial. Again, I put photographs in here to reflect members of our custodial team using some of the tools from our green cleaning program. What you see here are HEPA-filtered backpack vacuums and microfiber mops. This slide indicates the scope of our custodial duties. In addition to the things that you would expect to see in terms of cleaning the building or taking care of the building, we provide a lot of other things that support the educational program in the building. And I think it's no secret to say that the custodians, especially the head custodian, are a very important part of the principal's team in each building. This is our staffing. This has not changed from last year, despite the fact that we added 6 classrooms at Ballackinwood in the form of temporary classrooms. We are constantly reviewing our custodial staffing especially in this time of enrollment growth. And we were able to shift a part-time position from one school to Ballackinwood to cover that increased requirement. These are the major elements of the maintenance budget. Our most important asset are our employees. We are a personnel-intensive operation, so it's not surprising to see that our largest costs are related to personnel. Next, you see utilities, which is just under $2 million a year, and then our purchase services and supplies. This slide answers the question, what does it cost to maintain a school? And what I did on this slide is I took 3 years worth of maintenance cost data and subtracted out salary and benefits and broke it down, as you see here, by the type of school, elementary, middle, and high school, and then the various categories of the budget.
Can I interrupt you just a second? Go back.
Sorry, just quickly, the personnel costs, does that's from you all the way to a part-time custodian? Is that everybody?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry.
So again, these are a breakdown of costs for maintaining a building. We have a fairly large maintenance overtime budget every year. However, for next year, we are reducing it based on our experience in the past. It's primarily there for emergencies or bad weather, but we also do things like supporting school activities. Recently, our winters have been mild. We have not spent the entire overtime budget, so we are planning to reduce it for next year.
Okay, great. Just again, in terms of the contracted services on the previous slide, can you just explain a little bit what that might entail?
Sure. Some examples of contracted services are things like elevator service and repair, fire alarm repair, fire sprinkler testing, monitoring, and repair, things like tree trimming, custodial equipment repair, goose control on our fields, et cetera.
Thanks. I just saw your footnote there just as you were speaking, so thanks.
So again, this is our overtime plan for next year. Going to turn and talk about utilities for a minute now. This slide is similar to one we showed last year, only this year we're showing 4 years worth of trend information. The slide is broken into 2 parts. There are 2 lines for electricity at the top, 2 lines for natural gas at the bottom. And within each pair of lines, the top line indicates the actual usage of that utility. So for example, in electric, it indicates the trend for the amount of kilowatt hours that we're using on a year-to-year basis. Immediately below that is the trend for the cost of that electricity. And these are not always the same thing because of changes in the energy market. But we can say 2 things about this slide. We can see that we're continuing our trend of decreased usage of the utilities. And we're also able to control the cost of the utilities by taking advantage of trends in the market. We buy our electricity, the commodity portion of it, through a broker, and the broker is able to bundle up our requirements along with other school districts and municipalities and bid that out for very favorable pricing. Some of the ways we're able to control utilities.
These are utilities. So is there, I guess you'll have what your future budget
Yes.
is coming up? Oh, wait.
Yeah, I have several slides related to utilities. This slide indicates some of the ways that we're able to control and manage energy, primarily through our building automation systems. You see listed there the brand names of some of the systems that we have. These systems allow us to do what our parents taught us to do, that is to turn off the light when you're not using it or turn back the temperature when you're not using it. So we're able to schedule temperature setbacks and lighting changes. We've also been able to closely manage our peak electricity demand during the summer as part of our demand response program. This affects the cost, the portion of our electricity cost that reflects the demand charges. And then we continue to install simple things like occupancy sensors, timers, LEDs, et cetera. We're working this year to pick up the last of the hallways in our schools that don't already have these controls and restrooms. We believe that one of the secrets to keeping utilities costs low is preventive maintenance. So we have people who are dedicated to doing nothing but replacing filters, cleaning equipment, changing belts, lubrication, et cetera. We also are fortunate enough to have the skills in-house to be able to do things like rebuild pumps and reinstall or install new drives. A drive is an electronic device that controls the flow of the pump based on the actual need. There are maintenance activities listed there that all contribute to decreasing utility usage. This slide shows 4 years worth of cost per square foot. And this is broken down between electricity, natural gas, and water. Water, sewer are together. So when I say water, I also mean sewer. And we can say that electricity costs are steadily decreasing, although it appears we're getting to the flat part of the curve on this. We're continuing to decrease in natural gas. A lot of that would be related to weather. And we have a slight increase in water usage, and we're investigating that to make sure we understand what that is. A lot of that does have to do with irrigation of our playing fields. But at the same time, as enrollment goes up, the amount of usage per student in every building will increase due to restroom use and preparation of food, et cetera. So this is the actual electrical budget for electricity. And it shows the budget versus the actual going back to 2013-14. The energy brokers that we use give us a fairly accurate forecast of what we can expect for a budget for the next fiscal year. I found it to be fairly accurate. So I've taken that forecast and I've added in costs that I believe are not included or they haven't accounted for based on the temporary classrooms that we have. And then I've rounded up. So it's basically the same budget as last year, and the variance from the estimate is about 11%, which we believe is a prudent thing to do.
Hey, Pat, what happens during the summer? Oh, I'm sorry. What happens during the summer with the utility? I mean, is everything? Are things shut down, or is there a method by which obviously the students aren't here? And what happens during the summer with the?
Okay, well, we are able to cut back, and because of these building automation systems, Ken or one of his guys can sit at the computer and actually control some of these things. Now, that's not true in every school. We still have schools with window air conditioners. But I think we've trained the building staff to, if you're not in the room, if it's not being used, turn the air conditioning off. But we have to be careful at the same time. We can't just turn the air conditioning off in an entire building because we run into moisture problems and the things that come with that. So, and believe it or not, we do have programs going on in our schools, so we have to make sure we support those.
We also have a demand use program.
Right, as I mentioned, peak electrical demand occurs during the summertime. And a few years ago, they changed the way they charge us money for this. So they charge us based on our usage during the peak times on the entire grid. And the grid here is pretty extensive. It extends all the way out to Ohio and parts of Illinois, West Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, parts of New York. We are able to watch that. You can actually go on their website and watch this curve go up throughout the day. It peaks somewhere between 5 and 6 p.m. generally. So if it looks like it's going to be a peak day on the grid, then we can cut back on our electricity, again, mostly through our building automation systems, so that when we get through the end of the year and they look at those 5 peak points on the grid, our contribution during that time is as low as possible, and that affects our following year demand charges.
Pat, the other thing, and we're going to see this all throughout the 4 presentations, but you have on this side the 2017-18 budget and the 18-19 budget without a 2017-18 actual. Can you explain why that is?
Well, we're still in the middle of the fiscal year. The 17-18 fiscal year won't end until June 30th of this year. So if we showed you something, it wouldn't be a proper comparison because it wouldn't be a
complete.
It wouldn't be an apples-to-apples comparison. But I can't tell you, we are below where we would expect to be for this year.
Okay, so we're budgeting more than a year out of what
Correct.
we're going to be spending.
Correct. This budget is for expenditures that would begin in July of this year and, primarily affect the school year beginning in September.
I think it's a point that's good to make. If you're in a business, you can adjust your budget quarterly and you can do all of that, and we're not in that situation.
So the next slide is very similar, but takes a look at natural gas budgeting. And again, over time, because our usage, our costs have gone down, usage has gone down, we have adjusted the budget downward as well. Our cost estimate for next year is just under $300,000, and I'm rounding that up a little bit higher with about a 15% variance because this is very sensitive to weather.
Pat, do you also look at market trends and things in terms of whether there's an anticipation of the cost of gas going up or?
We do, and we do that in conjunction with our broker. Actually, they're the guys who keep their eye on the market for us. And I think it's important to recognize that in both the case of electric and gas, what we're buying through the broker is the actual commodity, the kilowatt hour or the million BTUs of gas. The other portion of our bill is from the utilities that distribute it and deliver it to us. So in one case, we don't buy our natural gas from PECO, the commodity, we buy it from somebody else. But PECO delivers it to us, so they add in certain charges as well. And in the case of electricity, you also have the grid operator involved, and that's when we get into passing on charges that are related to demand. Because electricity, in effect today, still can't be stored. The amount of electricity generated has to match that being requested on the grid. So hence the demand charges. They have to pay people to stand by with their generators and turn them on when they tell them.
And these are just for this is just building utilities. You'll have later slides on the buses?
Yes, yes. So this is a recap of the budget for next year for all these utilities, and we do have a reduction in natural gas as shown there. This is an overall look at our maintenance budget over the last few years. Some of the changes you see here in the purchase property services is because we have another set of temporary classrooms, we have more lease costs for next year that we've included. On supplies, we have a reduction primarily from the natural gas. Under property, we are actually budgeting to replace 4 of our vehicles. These are not school buses, they're maintenance type vehicles. We did not have any of that replacement last year, so we're planning to do that this year.
The purchase property services, there's a big difference between what we had paid in 16, 17 and what you're budgeting moving forward. Was that temporary classrooms from construction, or why is 16, 17?
There was an accounting change, the 400 objects, some things that were in 16, 17 recorded under that category now are in a different category.
Okay,
So
Primarily electricity.
electricity was the big one, yeah.
okay, thank you.
This slide indicates some of the cost savings and efficiencies that we continue to implement. We talked about energy purchasing and conservation. We make full use of the cooperative purchasing agreements that are available to us, as well as the bids through the Montgomery County Intermediate Unit. An example of the bid through the Intermediate Unit would be one for trash and recycling. We've been able to save money by participating in that. And I mentioned how we buy the utilities. We continuously review the custodial cleaning schedule. As I mentioned, we were able to accommodate the temporary classrooms at BC without adding staff. We just made some adjustments. As part of our green cleaning program, we continue to look at new methods and make continuous improvement. There's a new equipment or new method that's coming out that we're going to be experimenting with this summer that would combine 2 steps that you need for daily maintenance of floors into 1 step. And so we think that has a great potential for savings in labor and equipment. We continue to implement our new floor finishes, which are not like the traditional floor finishes, which requires a maintenance-intensive schedule of stripping floors and re-waxing every summer. And we've been very successful in getting rid of excess property to include vehicles that we replace. Instead of just trading them in with the dealer, we auction them off through Municibid, which is an eBay-like site for municipalities and school districts. I put this in here to indicate that we do share services with the township. In the case of the first 3 things shown on the slide here, trash collection at schools, leaves, and road salt, we do pay the township for these, but we benefit greatly by being able to do business with them as opposed to some other entity. We also combine our efforts to maintain playing fields on many of the township parks that we use as part of our co-curricular program. And we get great support from Public Works on emergency roadside assistance if we have a stuck bus during a snowstorm. They're happy to come and help us out. So in summary, our goal is to provide high-quality facilities to support our educational and co-curricular programs every single day. We seek continuous improvement. We believe preventive maintenance is essential, and we believe in being proactive. We try to anticipate problems, we fix things that are broken, and we plan for major system repairs and replacements. The next slide is just a brief summary of nutritional services program for the district. You can see the extent and the scope of the program. So I'm going to go back to maintenance and repair here and talk about major maintenance and repair projects. We presented the update of our 5-year facilities plan at the December Facilities and Purchasing Committee meeting, so this is kind of a rehash of that. But I'll point out a few things that have changed even in that short amount of time, and this kind of reflects that this is a living plan. I have a couple slides here that summarize projects we've accomplished in the last year. And again, some are major maintenance and repair projects like roof repairs. Others are replacing building components that have come to the end of their useful life, like chillers. And the artificial turf surface at Lower Merion High School. That turf surface lasted for 11 years. It was warranted for 8 years. And this summer we're planning to replace the one at Harriton. We also have done things that directly improve the educational program. For example is the last 2 projects listed on the slide here. Room 108, we went in and installed a restroom to support the educational, or actually special ed program. And then we did modifications in the library. There's a couple of projects listed here that are more related to safety and security. We installed some school zone flashing signals on Trent Road next to Penn Wynn. We made some modifications to the ones that are over at Penn Valley. We also added some security cameras, as you see there, and a lighting retrofit project in the gym at Bala-Cynwyd aimed at improving energy efficiency. Projects that are in progress right now are those that you see here. As you know, we're making a fairly significant improvement at South Ardmore Park to support the Lower Merion High School baseball and softball programs. And we're doing that, obviously, in conjunction with the township since it's their park. There's some photos, I have showed these previously, of some of the projects, kind of a before and after, left-hand side as a before or during project. And on the right-hand side would be the after. These are photos from Bala-Cynwyd Middle School. Those were the 2 roofs we worked on last year. Here's photos from replacing the synthetic turf field at Arnold Field. On the left is what the field looks like when you take the synthetic turf carpet off. So you're looking at a bunch of stone right there, gravel. Simple picture of our school zone flashing signal that we put in down at Penn Wynn. There's a picture of the small gym at BC where we did a lighting retrofit. And then here's a photo, more recent update of the team shelter. In the past, people like to refer to these as dugouts, but as you can see, there's nothing dug out about it. So we started using the term team shelter, and we installed these at Harriton to support their programs, and we worked out a deal with the township to do it at South Ardmore Park. What you see on the right is not totally complete. We're going to put a chain link fence along the back side of it, but then it'll be there for our teams to use as well as for the community to use.
Will there be a bench in there?
Yes, the benches are on order, should be arriving very soon. So the next two slides list projects that we have planned for this year, and this is where we've seen changes since December. So the first item you see on here is directly related to enrollment growth, and we've talked about it at previously at facility committee meetings, and that is cafeteria modifications at both our middle schools, BC and Welsh Valley, and this is directly related to accommodating enrollment growth. We also have projects on here to replace chillers, but since we presented this plan, we have had boiler failures in 3 of our schools. We had anticipated a 25-year life out of the boilers that we have at these schools, and in fact, we're seeing that we're getting anywhere from 15 to 20 years out of them. So we have 3 boilers currently out of service. Luckily, we have 2 at each school, so if you only lose 1 at the school, you still have heat. But we're going to be replacing 3 boilers this summer. Another project that's affecting us greatly is the repair of the underground stormwater basin at Harriton. That project is planned to start as soon as school is out. I mentioned the artificial turf at Harriton. This slide shows some projects that were added that are related to school security. There's 2 projects on here to improve the cell phone signal inside of schools at Marion and Penn Wynne. We also have a project shown for making modifications to the restroom to support the district's gender expansive policy. And we have a single project listed there with $1.5 million related to security. And this is a placeholder, and the exact determination of what will be done will be one of the results of the current school security task force.
Pat, at this time, all our schools have a single point of entry now, right?
Yes.
So you have to go in, you have to get buzzed in, sign in. And,
Yes.
And
So this is a recap of the 5-year plan adjusted. So the first projects you see here are the ones I just showed you. And then it indicates projects planned for the next few years. Excuse me here. And then the last there. So this slide is kind of a recap on a. We're back. Okay, so let me go back. We have 3 slides that show the projects planned for 5 years, and then this is kind of a recap of the costs on a year-by-year basis. And this year's costs are much higher, primarily because we've included the middle school cafeteria projects, which are being funded out of capital reserve. We have the $1 million stormwater basin repair at Harriton, and then we have the $1.5 million set aside for security projects. Also included on the slide here are 2 other significant projects that are not in the 5-year plan and are expected to be funded out of capital assets, that is borrowing. So now I'd like to talk about our transportation operation. This is a photograph from our bus garage up at Matson Ford Road, of which we are very proud. This slide indicates the scope of our operations. We have a large and complex operation. It's not unlike some regional transportation authorities, although we're a minor fraction of what SEPTA does. It is a challenge. Because of our requirement to transport to non-public schools located within 10 miles of our boundaries, plus transporting to those special needs students who attend specialized programs outside the district, we go to well over 100 places every day. We have extensive support to the co-curricular activities and the educational program directly with field trips. And then we maintain all the vehicles within the district. We operate in the 5-county area, and you can see the breakdown of the type of schools that we serve. This is just an example of some of the locations that we go to every day. Yes, there is one in New Jersey. And this is kind of breakdown of numbers that gives you an idea of the scope of the operation. We have well over 600 daily home-to-school, school-to-home runs. So if you take that number and divide the number of buses into it, you can see that each of our buses, or the statistics shows that we average over 6 runs per bus per day. The national average for the industry for a 3-tier system like ours is 5. So that's a measure of our efficiency, that we're able to get more runs in on a per bus basis. We support other programs, as you see there, including a pretty extensive summer program. It includes not only programs in our schools, but special ed students who have extended programs in the summertime. We're in operation over 300 days a year, to include days when our schools are closed, but the non-public schools are not closed. And spring break would be a good example of that. In terms of policy, yes.
Half-day kindergarten, we provide transportation both ways for half-day kindergarten, correct?
Correct. We provide it from the school, the elementary school, to the location of the half-day program, which is down in Wynwood, the old.
Right. I meant just the regular students, not necessarily ones using after.
Oh, yes.
special
Okay.
care.
Yes.
So
we do what's called midday runs.
Right. So do you drop off when you pick up, or do you go to the school, bring all the kids home, run again, pick all the kids up, and then?
You know, I'm embarrassed to say I should know this exactly, but I believe we do it twice, just because of the break in between. But it is the same group of buses that do it.
And
In other words, we drop off and then we pick up.
Bob, maybe you know this. When they assign morning and afternoon kindergarten, do they do it regionally? So if my kid's going to Gladwin, all the kids in my neighborhood would have morning kindergarten. All the kids in a different neighborhood would have afternoon kindergarten.
I believe the parents make a request, and after that, it's assigned. Isn't
Okay.
that it? The parents request, we take more parent requests.
Okay, I was just trying to
But I
find a way
think-
to increase efficiency there.
Yeah, I think, so what I'm, because of the time differences, I don't think you can pick up, they don't, they have to make, they drop off and then they have to come back because of the time. But somebody asked me what some of the differences are in our per pupil cost and others, and I can't account for all of them because I'd have to know the intimate knowledge of everybody's budget, but clearly one of the things that makes us different from some other districts in the area is that they don't provide midday transportation for kindergarten, and we do. You don't
Yeah.
get them. You simply say,
Get here if you can.
So another example shown on the slide that we provide that other districts don't is late-run buses after school at our 4 secondary schools, and this supports our after-school activities, both sports and other clubs, et cetera.
If we did just one late run after, instead of 2, because we do one at 4:30 and one at 5:30, would there be a cost savings, or are those buses fairly full and we just have to add buses to accommodate extra students?
I think the biggest effect, well, obviously it would save money because you have drivers with less time on the clock and fewer miles. But I'm not sure it would provide the support that's needed for the schools. We'd have to talk to them to find out how that would affect their program.
Well, I realize that there would be an impact to the schools, but again, I'm looking at ways that we might be able to.
Okay, so for example, we didn't do the 4:30, we just did the 5:30.
Right.
I believe we'd have to add buses.
I would agree with that. It is seasonal, and it's based on the sports season and the number of students. There are times that they're very full, and there's times that they're not so full.
Right, so the winter sports, there's fewer kids participating, but the spring and fall.
Correct.
there's a
Spring
lot
and
more.
fall is a little bit, but winter it's also there's more evening activities, so that it varies to different points throughout the year.
Okay, so this slide indicates the board policy for eligibility for transportation. The state law has a requirement. Board policy is actually half of that requirement. So you can see that to be eligible for transportation, for an elementary school student, you have to live over 3/4 of a mile from the school or 1 mile for secondary. The state limits are double that. And of course, if the route to get to school is considered hazardous, then you would be eligible for transportation. And in our vocabulary, people who are not eligible for transportation, we refer to as walkers. So if you hear somebody refer to someone as a walker, in our terminology, our jargon, it doesn't mean that they're walking to school every day. It just means they're not eligible for transportation. This is our staffing. This has increased by 1 driver since last year. The next few slides highlight some technology that we have introduced recently in the bus fleet. I think you're familiar with this, but we have introduced video surveillance systems on our buses, and by the time we take delivery of the next round of replacement buses in August, we should have every bus equipped with video surveillance. And I think this is proven to be popular, both with transportation, the drivers, as well as the administrators. You've also been including backup cameras on our buses, our replacement buses since 16-17. That's a photo of the rear view mirror of a bus that has an integrated monitor showing the rear view camera. But this year, we're getting buses that are equipped with a new system that actually has multiple cameras on the outside of the bus, and it takes that and stitches together a bird's eye view of the bus and allows you to see what's going on all the way around the bus. So, for example, this picture right here shows the bus from above. You can see there's a person standing here, and it looks like there's a vehicle over here. So this gives the driver much better situational awareness. You recall that last year we introduced a modern digital two-way radio system to our buses. It's based on a repeater system from 4 of our buildings that works because it's tied together on our already existing fiber optic wide area net. And this system has proven to be invaluable during times like severe weather. They gave me a radio so I can listen in on what goes on. I had to sign a piece of paper that said I would not talk on it. But I can listen in, and so I have a really good feel for what's going on during major events. Or I can listen on any given afternoon. It's really improved our efficiency and the service that we've been able to deliver.
Pat, given the power outages we had in this last storm or last 2 storms, did we find this was affected at all? Were there blackout spots? And do we have alternative means of communication should that occur?
We did not have trouble with the radios.
Oh, wow, great.
And for- we had a little bit of problem. I haven't been able to trace. No, I thought that was the case, but we sent our electrician up to check it. These radios are a good example of how we like to do business. We see support as a team sport, so we work together, work with IS department, work with our own mechanics, our electricians, et cetera. Ken had the foresight to make sure that all these radio repeater systems were put on the backup generator circuits at each school. So we have one at Matson Ford, one at Gladwin, one on top of this building, and one at Belmont Hills. And the guts of these things are located in an IT closet, and we make sure that in addition to other important things like phones and wireless access points, this system is tied to the backup generator. So the generator was running at Gladwin, and the system was on.
Right, but our internet and everything, and maybe George, is he still here? The dark fiber, the black fiber, whatever it's called, that we have that services all our buildings, I got to believe at least one of those poles went down in this storm. So
If it did,
would
I'm not aware
get-
of it. He might know.
Okay.
Didn't affect our operations.
Okay,
And we were pretty lucky in that whole thing. I forgot how many snowstorms we've had now, but the last two have involved a lot of power outages, especially on the 2nd of March. And some districts were really crippled because their transportation central hub, their bus depot, their dispatch operation lost power. And we did not lose power, but if we had lost power, we have major functions at Matson Ford are backed up on the generator.
George, we were just talking about the fiber between the buildings and whether we had any problems with it with all the power outages and things that we had in this past storm.
No.
He said no.
No, we haven't. In fact, a lot of accolades to operations. They recently undertook quite a project to get all of our telecommunication closets on backup generators. So when Gladwin went out, they still had phones and internet. So a lot of accolades to the folks that did that.
Yeah, it's a team sport. Success comes from working together. So the last thing I wanted to talk about in terms of technology was our bus status app. This is our 2nd year of using this. This allows us to inform parents of whether a bus is on time or delayed. It relies on manual input at our dispatch office, but with our radios now, we have much faster communication. And then the parents can elect to receive the information either on a computer or on an app on their smartphone. So they can sign up for, the buses that their students are on and get status alerts based on that. I'm signed up for every bus, so I get all of them.
So just anecdotally, I hear a parent here and there say, oh, well, I didn't know what was going on. I have the app. I didn't get the. Is there good compliance in terms of bus drivers doing what they need to do on their end to?
I won't tell you that 100%. I think it's getting better. We have gotten a little bit smarter this year about using that system to keep parents informed during these big events like the snowstorms. You'll see in the picture there. You see some buses are shown as yellow, some are shown as green. This would be a screen like I would see if I'm looking at all the buses or dispatch. We're able to go in and automatically turn everything yellow, and then put a short message for every bus. Like there's a big snowstorm, everything's delayed, or something like that. But you're right. Ultimately, it comes down to the drivers coming on the radio and saying, I'm running so many minutes late for this or that. And I hear a lot of that, but I can't tell you that it happens. It's accurate every single time.
To be honest, it works best on a regular day. But
Yes.
when we have a terrible snow, because somebody has to manually type in the situation, it's not following a GPS and it's automatically putting it in. The driver has to say, I'm running 10 and 12 minutes late, and they have to put it in. But on those where we get caught and we didn't realize we were going to be in the mess we're in, everybody's late, and it.
Right, and actually, I don't know whether David or Suba have heard anything, but in terms of that snowstorm, other than people saying it took my child 2.5 hours to get home from school, which was unavoidable. I didn't know. I don't know whether whether a driver was able to update that to that point.
Yeah, because it was. The driver would call in, they're going to be late, but on those days, everybody was late. So this tends to be more reliable on a normal day.
Right.
A driver has to make a road happens to be temporarily closed, or there's an accident on Montgomery Avenue and they have to be rerouted, and they're going to be 10 or 12 minutes late.
Right, but I would say that, in a day like we had the other day, where our bus drivers just did a fabulous job. I mean, the one thing I did hear over and over and over again was how grateful the parents were to the job that the bus drivers did in that absolutely miserable situation. But there's a difference between a bus, even in those situations, that's running late because of the snow, and one that's stuck and is waiting for township to come with a tow truck to pull them out. in which case they're more likely to be an hour and a half late than just 40 minutes or whatever. So, maybe, I don't know, but, just that feedback.
Just by way of to make sure, at about 9:30, 9:35, we're gonna close access to leaving the campus
Okay.
because because of the student walkout and security,
Okay, and when are you going to reopen it?
about 10:30 or when they're done. So I'm suggesting that perhaps we want to, move along.
Okay.
So this slide
Or stay with
indicates major portions of the transportation budget. Again, we are a personnel-intensive operation, so that's our biggest cost, salary and benefits. You see contracted carriers and then our fuel costs. Our budget for overtime is, as shown here, it's a fairly large amount. It hasn't changed from our current year, but it's there primarily to support what's going on in the school, our educational and co-curricular programs. In addition, it's there to respond to emergencies like bad weather.
Pat, regardless of what Bob just said, the 4 weekend custodians that you have, is that their regular time or are they overtime?
In the 2 high schools, we have regular weekend custodians. It is a part-time position. They work an 8-hour shift on Saturday and 8-hour shift on Sunday. So they are officially part-time employees. They're not getting paid at the overtime rate. We did that years ago to try to cut down on the cost of overtime.
Yeah.
The people we have are generally employed somewhere else during the week, at another school district or whatever. So this is a breakdown of the transportation budget here. Probably the biggest thing is an increase in the other purchase services as we've increased the cost of contract transportation. And as I'll explain, as our enrollment has gone up, one of the things we've done to try to deal with that is shift some of the runs where we have fewer students going to farther distances over to contractors and bring our larger buses back and use those to support operations that are closer in. This is just a simple slide showing increase in special needs. This happens to be the number of students requiring a bus aid. So this can change either because the student's needs changes or because we have more students with those needs, but it's just kind of an indicator. This is a graph that shows changes in ridership over the last 5 years. It mirrors our enrollment growth. It does not mirror it exactly because of the fact that you can have enrollment growth without more people riding the bus if people move into the areas that are not eligible for transportation. But in general, this mirrors our enrollment growth. And as I mentioned earlier, our tactic has been to try to shift some of the routes that are fewer children farther away to contractors and use our large bus to accommodate our public school and close-in non-public school operations. We have a program where we replace buses on a regular basis, generally 10-12% of the fleet every year. This shows you the number of buses and how much money we have spent over the last few years. This Monday night at the board meeting, we'll be asking you to approve the final replacement buses as part of this year's plan, or next year's plan, if you will. These are paid for from capital reserve funds. This is an example of some cost savings that we've tried to implement, and we've been fairly successful. We have not had to increase our fleet size, although the number of students transported has increased due to enrollment growth. If we do contract out, we take control of the route of that contract. We tell the contractor, this is the route you're going to use, so that we can make sure it's the most efficient route. I think you're aware that we use a shuttle transfer system for a lot of our non-public schools, and that has continued, and we've tried to make better and better use of that. As part of the radios being installed in the bus, we're able to change our cell phone provider and save money in that way. This slide indicates some of the money that comes back to us. We've been very successful over the years in obtaining grants to offset part of the cost of buying our compressed natural gas buses. You can see there that we're awaiting payment on the final, the most recent grant for that. We also have been able to take advantage of tax rebates that have been authorized by the Congress for natural gas that's used as vehicle fuel. We did not include that in next year's budget because it is a year-by-year, congressional decision. So we're not counting on that. And then, of course, we do get a state subsidy every year directly related to the amount of transportation, the amount of miles that we drive. As we've talked about before, our drivers are very successful. They're very well trained. They're successful at competitions like this. But as you said before, I think the real test of the quality of our drivers is when they get in a situation like we encountered on the 2nd of March. I spoke to drivers. They were in some amazing situations. One driver told me he had to back up and turn around 7 times. Some people told me they've essentially had to back the bus up the equivalent of 3 or 4 blocks to get out of where they were. And they maintained their cool. We had a lot of help from Public Works. Our own mechanics were out doing some really heroic service with their trucks. They actually helped get some buses turned around and even unstuck. And overall, I'm very proud to say that they did exactly what you would expect them to do, and that is look out for the children, their safety first, and then to get them home.
I would add to that, I think we were really pleased, not only with the drivers, but the entire ops department. They're kind of the group that you don't notice unless something's going wrong. And so the stuff that goes right sometimes gets unnoticed. But I think this is, in some ways, one of our most important presentations because there's a lot of money that goes unnoticed by the public to maintain the buildings and the shape that they're in, and to save money in the long run.
Yeah, Pat, I know that over the last several years in particular, you've worked really hard to maximize the money that you're spending and cutting where you can, and so thank you for that. And you lived through that snowstorm we had many years ago, where before cell phones, before all the cell phone or beginning of cell phones, and all the cell phone lines went out, and it was a disaster.
That actually does predate me, but
it does. Oh, I thought that was like one of your first years. I mean, it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. So, kudos again to all your guys. I don't know. You brought a lot of people here. Do you guys have anything you want to? Yeah, you have 2 minutes. Thanks, Dave. Dave's got to get to work.
Before he's here with us.
So I gave them the very general task of being ready to answer questions, but
Okay.
they all helped put this together. So
The only thing I would say is, in the interest of the rest of us getting off campus, if anybody has any questions, both anybody who sees this on video at a later date, or Sue or any of the board members, we'll get the questions to you and Vic, and then we'll try and get them answered at the next meeting, which is, 2 weeks from now? April 4th sounds right.
I think it's special education, student services, yeah.
Yeah, Wednesday, April 4th at 8:30, and it's student services. So with that, we will adjourn, let everybody get off campus, and have a good day. Thanks, guys.